Authenticity is a word often talked about when it comes to social media, brands, and founders. But how do you draw the boundaries of how real to be and how much to share? Ha- who bleh. Today I'm chatting with Becci McEvoy, founder of Be Heard Socials, who is a content strategy and social media marketing expert. Becci, thank you so much for being with me today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Before we get into the topic of authenticity, can you just explain to people who are listening what you do and who you do it for?
Yes, of course. So, as you said, my name is Becky, and I am a social media marketer, and I specialize in content strategy and organic growth on social media. So that is growth without paying for ads. So you're obviously, I'm not going to say it's the free platform because I'm very big on saying people need to value their time and their time should come at a cost, but it is without paying for ads. So yeah, that's my speciality. My main platform is Instagram, but I work across the platforms. I run the Boss Your Socials Club. So I help women-owned businesses to show up on their socials, be heard on their socials, and just get more visible without the big thing for me is without the overwhelm and without all the really complicated things that it can seem come with social media.
And what are your tips for brand founders who feel like they've been holding back and not showing their true selves? What are kind of the steps they can take to be a bit more of themselves and authentic in their content?
I think in terms of if you're a little bit hesitant or, like we all are, like a little bit nervous about it, because it's scary putting yourself out there. And this is coming from somebody who, like, I put myself out there a lot. And still now, like, even before coming onto this podcast, I was like, oh no, what if I say the wrong thing? Oh no, what if I forget everything I've ever known, which is never going to happen. Like I might forget to say something, for example, that I'd planned to say, but I'm not going to forget everything that I've ever known. So I think the first step is remembering that it is completely normal. And even the people that you see showing up regularly and seemingly confidently and seemingly effortlessly probably all feel the same things as well. So yeah, I think the first step is to normalize it. No, there's nothing wrong with you. You are just a human being, and it is scary putting yourself out there. There are some things that you can do. Like I said, my main platform is Instagram, and one of the reasons I love Instagram so much is there's so many features that you can use on there to help you, either with your boundaries or with your confidence and things like that. So, for example, if you're thinking about showing, I know the other platforms, there'll be hundreds of these I can mention, but just as a couple, as an example, on Instagram, you can show up on your stories, for example, but only post it to your close friends. So it doesn't necessarily go out to your whole follower list. And you can utilize that feature as just a way to get more confident doing it, for example. So the
Yeah.
purpose isn't necessarily about what you're saying. It's just about you getting used to using the features and putting it out there to a select number of people. And that could be literally one person. Like you could have your husband on the list, for example, or your partner on the list, just to get used to doing it. There are other features on Instagram, like you can practice lives. So, if you're planning to go live or you wanted to go live, you can practice basically and just get used to what's going to happen. So there's a feature on Instagram that you can do that, which doesn't put you live to absolutely everybody.
Sorry, just back to that practice live one.
Yeah.
Is that a new feature?
No, it's been around for quite a while actually, but I don't think many people know about it.
Yeah.
And now, off the top of my head, I can't remember exactly where it is in Instagram. But I think when you open up the feature to go live, and at the top of the screen, you'll see. I think it's a drop down menu, and basically it you either go live or it gives you the option to practice going live. So I suppose it depends what you define as new, but it's been around for at least the last few months or so. There's so many features across all the platforms, but like in my case for Instagram, that you can use to help you with these things. But obviously, if you don't know about them,
Yeah.
it's not very helpful. And that's why it's good to listen to podcasts like this, so that you can learn like different tips and tricks.
Well,
Um,
it's 11 o'clock and I've learned something new already today, which is great.
Well, there you go. So there you go. That's my job done. I feel like I've already succeeded on the podcast. But yeah, there are. I won't go through them all because I will be here all day listing things off. But there's loads of things that you can do to sort of get you a bit more comfortable with it, and features that you can use. I think the other thing to probably remember is that no one's really expecting you to be perfect other than yourself. And
Yeah.
it's you that gives yourself the hardest time. So, for example, when you just said to me, oh, is that a new feature? And I just relatively confidently said, No, it's not that new. I can't remember exactly how you do it because I don't practice going live. If I'm going live, I go live. And so I haven't done it for a long time. And I wouldn't think that if anybody listens to that and goes, oh my gosh, she doesn't know um, how it works. It's like, I'm okay with that because I can easily find that out. And I do this with my members all the time. If someone asks me a question, I go, I don't know that right now, but I'll go and find that out for you. So I think it's sort of humanizing that. But the other thing that I was just going to say, which I think is probably the key point, and it's horrible advice when you think about it because none of us want to hear it, but the confidence comes from doing it, and you don't
Yeah.
get confident. I don't think you can learn how to be I mean, you can learn different things around confidence, but the confidence comes from doing it. So I think you just have to sort of challenge yourself to do it in a way that you're comfortable. So if that is using a close friends feature or the practice features, that's great. I've never used a practice going live feature. And actually, I've got a story around when I started my business. In fact, the first year and a half that I had a business, I didn't have a social media account. And I had all the excuses in the world as to why I didn't have a social media account. At the time, my children were 2 and 4. I was quite lucky in a lot of ways that my business sort of happened by accident. And I had clients, they all came from word of mouth, and I didn't need to market myself. And I was at capacity with those for a relatively long time, and I didn't want another social media account to manage. But actually, when it came down to it, and this is, someone who is a social media marketer, when it came down to it, and I was working with a life coach at the time, she kept pushing me as to why I didn't have one. And she kept asking me why. And I kept saying, because I've got my children and they're at home with me, and
Yeah.
because I've got this. And she was like, no, but why, Becky? And when you get more irritated, and basically the long story short is that I was scared of failing, and I was scared that if I had a social media account out there, I had something that could fail. So anyway, we dug into that a bit deeper. We're saying, well, you've already got something to fail because you've got clients who could, and anyway, we dug deeper into why I was worried about failing. And the crux of it was, which I think is true for a lot of people, I wasn't actually scared about failing. I was scared about what other people were going to say if I failed or it didn't work out. So I did a lot of work on my mindset, and ultimately the only way I got over it was by setting up a social media account and going on my stories and doing the things. And if you look back at my first live or my early lives or my early stories, they are so cringy. They're still on my account now. They're so cringy. I'm sort of sat there very nervous, looking down at notes that I'd written a full page of. And I've learned over time I don't work well with notes because I know my stuff. I
Yeah.
just need to believe in myself. So yeah, it's horrible advice to say the confidence comes from doing it, but it does. So I think a lot of it is mindset based, and investing in yourself and investing in your mindset as well, and getting support from other people. So like we both help small businesses with various different things. At the time it was my life coach helping me with different things, and it's remembering that we weren't meant to do this by ourselves. And if we're struggling with it, there's so many people out there that can help us. So asking for that help as well.
And in terms of establishing those boundaries of what to share and not share, how do you help people establish? And everyone will have different levels of that boundary. How do you help people establish what feels comfortable then for them?
So I think the biggest thing for me is I like to, and I have to stop myself because sometimes I do use it, but I've tried to ban the word oversharing because I don't think there's any such thing as oversharing. I think there's sharing what you're comfortable with, and what I am comfortable with sharing and what you're comfortable with sharing can be wildly different, but neither of them are right or wrong. So I think firstly, you need to get comfortable with what you're sharing. And how much you're happy to share. So for example, I share a lot on my social media. I share a lot of behind the scenes. I speak quite openly about various different mental health things. But that's because I'm comfortable with that, and it's because where anybody else is involved, I've made sure that's with full permission. But
Yeah.
because I share so openly, people think I share everything, and it's not. It's still only a fraction of my life because I'm sharing what I feel comfortable with. For example, I can be going through really hard things with my children, but I'm not going to show up on social media and share that because A, it's not my story, and B, I don't want to. I'm not comfortable with sharing that about the children. That doesn't make me any less authentic. It just
Yeah.
makes me, in the same way that I don't go on the school run, get to the playground and tell everybody everything that's happened in my morning. That doesn't make me any less authentic. And it's the same in person as online, really. And one of the things I like to say to people as a way to decide whether to post it or not to post it, for example, is to ask themselves the question, why does it matter and who cares? And if you can answer those two questions, then post it. And if you can't, or the answers come back, well, I'll give an example of that in a minute, but the answers come back and you decide that you shouldn't post it. So, for example, I was saying just now that I speak quite openly about mental health struggles that we've been through in the past, and both me and my husband. And when I look at it, it's about knowing my audience. Well, when I ask myself the question, why does it matter? Well, it matters because I know on a personal level, I know that when we were going through that, other people sharing it was like my survival guide, and it really helped me. So it matters to me for that.
Yeah.
It also matters because there's no way so I've got about 2,500 followers on Instagram. There's no way that there's not a portion of those people going through something that it will help. And who cares? Well, it helps demonstrate my values in terms of what I talk about, in terms of kindness, in terms of the different values that I have. And then I post it. Whereas I've actually had that conversation with myself again recently. Why does it matter and who cares? And one of the answers I came back with who cares? My children are getting older. And it's like, well, who cares? Well, my children might care. My children might not want that, being shown on social media as much, which is a very personal thing to me, because that doesn't mean deciding not to isn't appropriate. But yeah, basically asking yourselves those questions really help. And so, for example, you can ask that around sort of sharing political opinions, whether that's right. And sometimes it can come back. And I mean, this isn't so much on the authenticity thing, but say, for example, it's like, why does it matter? Well, I haven't posted anything for 4 days and I need to get, 4 weeks or whatever it is, and I need to get something out. Well, that's not actually like, okay, that matters, but that's not a reason to necessarily get a post out if it's not the right, you're posting literally for the sake of
Yeah.
being visible. So yeah, I think that's a really, really helpful question to ask yourself. And then the other thing is just thinking about your audience. So for example, I do share different bits and pieces about being a mum and my children. And it helps me be quite relatable because I know that a high proportion of my audience and people who work with me are also mums of small children. So I'm quite big on normalizing like the highs and lows of being a mum in general. And I know that's relevant because that's relevant to my audience. So yeah, it's asking yourself those kind of questions, knowing your audience. But the real big one is, why does it matter and who cares? And if you can answer those, then post it. And if you can't, or you're not happy with the answers that come back, maybe step back for a second and rethink whether you're going to post it or not.
And what about, people when they're on the other end of a phone, I think can lose their, not everyone, but some people when they're on the other end of a phone, they lose their inhibitions, they lose their moral compass, and they can say things and comment on things in a very awful and nasty way through the anonymity of a profiler. So in terms of those negative comments and that trolling that some people may come across, what is your advice with that, if people
So
experience something like that?
yeah, absolutely. I think the main thing for me, and again, lots of my stuff comes down to mindset and confidence. So I think the real key thing around all of this is, do the work on your mindset and confidence. I spent a I invested in myself, like I said, with the life coaching, with various different things, and it was the best thing I ever did for my business. Also, with the best will in the world, you can do all of the work, but if somebody says something that's not very nice, it's not very yeah, because we're human beings, but it's about having that toolbox of how you react. So I think the first thing to say is, never react or reply straight away or with emotion. Take a chance to step back and actually think about what you're going to reply, because equally we can reply very emotionally because we are human beings and it might not be the best thing to say. I also think, and this is a bit of the mindset perspective, but remember and take time to remember that those comments are very rarely, if ever, about you and very much about the person
Yeah.
that's leaving them. And that's more just to sort of stay confident in yourself. But I think it's quite helpful to take a moment to differentiate, because we can easily go, oh, I'm going to brush off all negative comments because that's about them and it's not about me. I also think it's quite important to take a moment to differentiate between what's constructive comments. It might seem negative to you, but what's actually constructive and actually someone's just disagreeing with you, and what's trolling. And I think when it's trolling, which I would say happens way less, I mean, I can't say this blanketly, but I think it happens way less than we think it's going to if we put ourselves out there. I would say I've had my business for 5.5 years now. I've had my social media accounts for about 4 years. And I can count on one hand, well, probably, like, I was going to say less than one hand, but I've literally had a couple of negative. Yeah, no, on one finger, yeah, no, but I probably have maybe one or two genuinely trolly comments. And
Yeah.
to be honest, I deleted them both because they were so pathetic that they didn't add anything to what I was saying. So I deleted it. But I don't necessarily think that's, again, it's not about the right or wrong way. It's probably about having a bit of a response strategy. So decide what you're going to do. And I would say the first step of that response strategy is take a moment to say, is this constructive or is it just outright negative
Yeah.
comments? If it's constructive, again, take time to think of your response, because you don't want to react with emotion, but just reply calmly and professionally, and you can do that. If those comments continue, it's about boundaries, isn't it? Like, you can have
Yeah.
boundaries in place for it as well. So the first comment, if it's constructive, you will reply to calmly and professionally. If that continues, you can say to that person, I'm so sorry you're feeling like this, for example. You can drop me an email. And if they continue to comment on there, you don't have to continue to engage with it. If you have clearly set out a boundary to say, I have told you that you can come to the DMs or you can come to my email or whatever,
Yeah.
and I will speak to you there. If it is outright trolling, I know some people love that. This comes down to the kind of person you are. I don't think I could have, if I actually got it. I might be able to in some instances, but I'm not sure I'd be able to have the sort of jokey banter, like where some people can reply like that. And I think that's great if you're that sort of person. I'm probably not that sort of person. And I probably would my strategy would probably be to delete the comment, just because it's
Yeah.
adding nothing. Again, coming back to one of the lots of the reasons that I love Instagram, and this will happen across other platforms as well, is there's features that you can use. So you can limit who comments on your profile. You can block and mute people. So if you are getting continued trolling comments, like, use that block and unblock feature absolutely unapologetically, because you don't have to, just because you're a business, you don't have to be public to absolutely everybody if they're bringing negativity. Because I think
I-
protecting your mental
I've
health.
seen a new I've seen a new feature as well. Well, it's probably, again, probably not new, but it was something that I hadn't seen before, which was that you can almost earmark words, and if those words appear in a text,
Yeah.
in a message, then you don't see the message. So you can kind of choose words and screen any comments with those words.
Yes, absolutely. So if you don't want swearing on your page, you can put swear words into that, for example, and it'll block out, you won't be able to see the comment. So utilize those features, and don't feel like you have to be open to everybody, because you don't. And for me, when it comes back to boundaries, if someone's speaking to me like that, that's a huge red flag for me. I don't want them to be part of Bossy Socials Club, and I don't want to work with them. So actually blocking them from my page is okay. But equally, you do have to, if you're putting yourself out there, and this comes back to actually deciding what you're going to share. If you're going to put quite a strong opinion out there about something, or you're going to share something political, you have to be open, really, to people responding to that and disagreeing with you. And it's one of the reasons I won't share a lot of political stuff on my account. I don't think there's anything wrong with doing that, but there's a lot of stuff I don't want to have a debate about, because it's a deal breaker for me to think one way or the other. But actually, I can't really argue that people irritate me coming back with an opinion if I've put my opinion out
Yeah.
there. So yeah, it's just thinking about what you post before you post it.
And I suppose I do want to highlight as well, though, like you said, you've been online for quite a while and you've had one negative comment. I don't want to scare people off from being their authentic selves, thinking they're going to get trolled or lots of awful comments. I've never had a negative comment, or never, and so for people that are listening and they're like, oh my God, is this what's going to happen to me if I start being more
Yeah,
myself or start showing up? Don't. It is not going to, that is not the case. So
no,
don't worry about.
no, it absolutely isn't. And I will also say, and I am big on boundaries. So I have a framework around content creation, and It's called the Boss Framework, and the B stands for boundaries, because I think it should be front and center. I think to thrive on social media, you have to have strong boundaries in place. And so I know about all these features. I don't use any of them because I've never needed to. I've never had to limit who interacts with me. And the only way that you will know is by putting yourself out there. It's kind of that coming from doing it. But I suppose if you can put yourself out there with the confidence that if you need those features, you can use them.
Yeah.
I think, again, I've probably had to block only like a handful of people. And most of those have been those spammy accounts that are trying to marry me or just
Yeah.
whatever else it is. It's not offensive comments. It's just, accounts I don't want constantly spamming me. And I think that's really key to remember. I would say that I've never had it. I've had it very rarely, like one or two. You very rarely had it. And, my membership has got around 50 women-owned businesses in it, and they've very rarely ever had it. So I think it's actually knowing that, yes, it can happen. Of course it can. But there's features that can protect you from that. And actually, it's way rarer. And that was the final point I was going to make, was focus on the positives. So when those negatives come in, and I know it's hard because, you can get 10 people saying wonderful things about you and one person saying they didn't like something, and you focus on the one. But focus on the positives as well. So one of the things I do is I have a love folder on my phone. And every time somebody says something nice, which happens a lot on social media, when you're putting yourself out there, I screenshot it, save it to my love folder. And when I get, well, I say when I get, if I get a negative comment, when I did get that negative comment, I go and have a scroll through that. Or if I'm just feeling a little bit like my content's going nowhere or it's not having an impact, because it can feel like that at times, I go and have a look at that love folder and go, no, this is making a difference. This is helping people. So focus on the positives as well, because there's so much more of that than there is negative.
Absolutely, 100%. And Becky, you mentioned your membership there. What are the ways people can work with you, and where can they find you?
So my membership is the main way. I used to do full blown social media management, and I don't do that anymore, because I realised very quickly the people that really I love helping and really light me up are the people that, if I'm honest, generally can't afford full blown social media management, and also it limited me to how many people I can help. So I've got the Boss Your Socials Club. In that, every month it's £24 a month. I deliberately put it quite low cost because I wanted it accessible to help as many people as possible. And you get a content strategy from me every month, a pick my brain session where you can come and ask how to make that bespoke to your business, and a community of absolutely incredible women. And we also have accountability and action sessions where we do the work together and actually get the content created together to spur each other on. And then I have a number of one-to-one services, like if you're just wanting some very focused one-to-one help, I've got power hours and some Instagram audits and make it happen days that you can do as well. But yeah, the big one is Boss Your Socials Club, which is where most of my focus goes.
And on Instagram, people can find you at?
Be Heard Socials.
They'll all be in the show notes for people to follow and connect with Becky. So thank you, Becky, for being such a great guest. And I'll be back next week with another expert or entrepreneur.